Lyney is coming in the new patch along with Zaddy, Arlecchino, and so I figured out how to read, and I wanted to break down his kit to show you exactly what he does, what his best teams are, his playstyle, his artifacts, and pretty much go over the whole thing. So let's get right into it. Lyney's primary source of damage is from his charge attack. One thing that makes Lyney's kit so unique is the fact that he has multiple properties in this charge attack, being prop arrow and the Grin Malkin hat. Starting off with the prop arrow. When you do this charge attack, there's these little folly guillotines that are coming out from the sky that actually look kind of cool, but they also deal a pretty decent amount of single target pyro DPS. Now, when Lyney has more than 60% HP and a prop arrow is fired, he will consume 20% of his HP in order to get a surplus stack. What is a surplus stack? It's pretty much allows you to have more damage when you activate your skill, which we'll get to in a moment. The maximum amount of surplus stacks you could have is 5. Lyney will only receive this stack if his HP is above 60%. Now, when you use Lyney's skill, it's this cool little looking hat trick that he does that I thought it was fire. I thought it was kind of crazy. I'm not gonna lie to you. When he does this skill, it will deal AoE pyro damage based on the amount of surplus stacks you have. And then once the skill is done, all stacks will be consumed. You will regain health based on the amount of stacks you had. Now for the Grin Malkin hat. When you do a charge attack, it spawns this little cute ass cat in the hat that it's actually adorable. Like, look at it. Like what? This Grin Malkin hat will taunt your opponents and aggro the opponent's attacks on them, so you can try to stay in the back and snipe with Lyney. Each opponent can be taunted every 5 seconds. When this Grin Malkin hat is either destroyed via taking damage, or if it expires, it'll set off a pyrotechnic strike dealing pyro damage. This little ball that's kind of flying through the air that's hitting the enemy, that is the pyrotechnic strike. You can only have one hat on the field at a time. Now, if there's a hat on the field while you're doing a charge attack, it'll automatically replace that Malkin hat, and then that old Malkin hat will fire off a pyrotechnic strike. Now, when you're using Lyney's skill with the Grin Malkin hats on the field, it will also cause the Grin Malkin hat to explode, dealing AoE pyro damage equal to a pyrotechnic strike. So when you're using this skill, you have not only the little hat trick that you're using and you're getting the 5 stacks from the surplus, but you are allowing that little Grin Malkin hat to explode as well. So you pretty much got 2 explosions going on there. Now with the burst, it's going to feed into the prop surplus stacks as well. Lyney hops into this hat thinking he's like Vin Diesel about to go save his family, and he's just driving around running people over.
I don't have friends, I got family.
Every opponent you come in contact with, you can only hit them one time and it deals pyro damage. When your ultimate either expires or when you click the button again to stop it early, it's going to deal AoE pyro damage, and it's going to give you 1 prop surplus stack in addition. I'm not going to lie to you, I personally always end the ult early. I use Lyney for single target DPS. I don't really use him for crowd control, so we'll get to that a little bit later. Here's the other thing that makes people either love Lyney or absolutely hate him. It's his talents. So the first talent is pretty basic. I lied, I didn't learn how to read. It just makes the Malkin hat from the charge attack do more damage and give you back some energy. But the conclusive ovation, I got down the first try, just so you know. The conclusive ovation, this is where shit gets wild. It increases pyro damage to opponents by 60%, and for every pyro character other than Lyney who is in the party, gets an extra 20% damage, maxing out to 100%. Translation, you need to run mono pyro. You're getting the 60% base stat boost, and you have to get another 2 pyro characters in your party for that 40% to max out to 100% extra damage. So if you want to reach that full DPS potential with Lyney, you gotta run mono pyro. If you don't, you're missing out on damage. Now for the artifacts, it's very simple. Marichussi. What? Marichussi. What? Marichussi. Every other artifact set is not as good. Don't even bother. For the main stats, you want an attack sands, a pyro goblet, unless if you're not running Bennett, although I would not recommend that. You should be running Bennett with Lyney at all times. But if you're not running Bennett, you will want an attack goblet instead, and then a crit damage circle. For the substats, you really want to focus on crit damage, attack, ER, and possibly crit rate. The reason why I say possibly crit rate is this. Lyney is going to be ascending with crit rate already, along with the Marichussi effect giving you, I think, like 36 plus crit rate off rip. Don't need as much crit rate because you don't want to overcap. So you really want to focus mainly on the crit damage, attack, and ER. Pretty straightforward, not complicated. You just have to have RNGs to bless you with some crazy shit.
You can't keep getting away with it!
Now for his weapon, obviously his best in slot is going to be his signature First Great Magic. This shit looks kind of crazy. What this weapon does is gives you 66.2 crit damage, which is always nice, and it has a high base attack. And the passive pretty much allows his charge attack to do more damage and gives him bonus damage for all pyro units, including himself. So translation, it's busted. It's his best in slot, as you would figure. Second best option is going to be the Aqua Sim, which has 88.2 crit damage and gives a 20% damage buff with the Aqua's passive. Some other 5-star bows can can work as well for stat sticks, but again, I would personally stay away from the bows. I have crit rate as the main stat because you don't want to cap on crit rate.
Oh my God!
For 4-star weapons, either battle pass weapon or the prototype crescent. The only annoying thing about the prototype crescent is you have to hit a weak spot to get the passive to proc, and you either need to have really good aim or some enemies just don't have weak spots like that, or at least not as visible. So now for teams.
Stop the cap. Stop the cap right now.
Due to the passive that we went over previously, you want to have mono pyro so that way you can have as much DPS as possible. I'm normally looking at Benny, Lyney, Xiangling, and Kazuha, so that way you fulfill all pyro damage as well as Kazuha for the swirls and the VV shred. The only problem with this team is you are going to get absolutely yoked up and interrupted every 3.5 seconds by everyone and their mother, bro.
It'll be all right.
So the alternative option is running something like Lyney, Benny, Xiangling, Xiangling, or Benny, Lyney, Kaza, and Dia. Now your damage won't be as much as the first team I said with either Zhongli or Dia in the party. However, if you keep getting interrupted, you can't hit a shot, you're not doing damage either way. Now for the actual gameplay loop for Lyney, I'm not gonna lie to you, what I personally like to do, 2 charge attacks off with Lyney first. That way he's at 60% HP, and then I swap to my supports to start the setup. These surplus stacks are going to last 30 seconds, so you have time to swap around and pretty much set up everything before you swap back to Lyney. I'm just saying half a minute's a long time. So yeah, I'll do the 2 charge attacks with Lyney for the 2 surplus stacks. I'll swap to Benny, do it all, Kazuha Q, E, Xiangling burst, swap back to Lyney, do 2 more charge attacks so that way I have 4 surplus attacks, and then I'll ult with Lyney to get 1 final surplus stack, maxing to 5. Once I'm out of the ult, I will then use my skill. Boom. Big PP damage number. Now, I'm going to be honest with you, since he is a charge bow user and you do need to rely on these stacks, it will not always be perfect and you will not always have 5 stacks every single time, and that is okay. 4 stacks will still be suffice. You'll still do a lot of damage. Here's the thing though, after we've gone over his kit, this is one of the reasons why people don't like Lyney, is because of the mono pyro aspect, and I 100% understand. With Lyney, although he's very fun and he is my personal favorite bow user, he's very limiting in not only his teams, but the activities you can run him in. For example, this current abyss we have at the time of this recording, it is nearly impossible to use Lyney on the first half because you were either going to fight people that you either need a shield for these dancing assholes that I absolutely hate with a passion, or everyone has a pyro shield and my Zhongli crystallize is not taking them down, or my Kaza swirl, we're just swirling pyro on top of pyro, so nothing is happening. So he is very niche, but he is viable. Constellations, I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't think it's worth it, but these are what the constellations do. C1 gives Lyney 2 Grin Melkin hats, and prop arrows will summon 2 Grin Melkin hats and grant Lyney 1 extra stack of prop surplus, so that way you get these stacks easier. C2 allows his Chris Focus stacks to give him an extra 20% crit damage, and the max stacks are 3. C3 is honestly probably his best, which allows his normal attack to be increased by 3, which is I think a first of any kind. C4 just pretty much brings the pyro res down of the enemy by 20% for 6 seconds. C5 is bringing your ult up by 3 levels, which is a little bit, is kind of but whatever. C6 is honestly just giving you a bunch of more DPS and makes him broken. He's broken, that's what it is. That's my Lyney guide.
Just calling my name. So come on, baby, let's stop playing games.